Gabrielle Pavicic from Green Council of Australia. Very excited to talk to you about our new Green Star Fitouts tool. So today I'll give you kind of a bit of a rundown as to what it's about, chat through kind of the categories and some of the key credits, including our minimum expectations and the like, and just open up, give everyone the chance to ask questions if you have any, and understand to learn a little bit more about this new tool. I'm always going to start with some context setting just for anyone who doesn't know much about Green Star or about GBCA. So just a little bit about Green Star. Green Star was founded by GBCA over 20 years ago now, and we set the standard for sustainable buildings, fit outs, communities and homes in Australia. So we've got a bunch of great tools that we use across different sort of project scopes in the industry, and that's our way of driving sustainable change. We have thousands of projects now certified, Green Star certified. So from large buildings to communities to lots of fit outs as well. And the great thing about Green Star 2 is it's a certification you can trust. So we set the standard, we have third-party assessors go through and make sure that projects are doing the right thing. And then we hold the Green Star trademark as well. So only certified projects can use the trademark. So all really valuable stuff when it comes to making, obviously, claims about what you're doing in your projects when it comes to sustainability. So that's just our little bit of background. This is our future focus program for Green Star. So a bunch of you will be familiar with our other tools. So Green Star Buildings, we've got Home Standard, we've got Performance and Communities. And until now, we had Green Star Interiors too, which was the older version of our Green Star Fitouts tool now. So Green Star Fitouts is now out in the world, which is very exciting. It's been a long time coming, and there are lots of great bits and pieces about it. We've been very intentional in the changes we've made in this big update, so this new tool. And it has given us the opportunity to try some really exciting things and focus on kind of the real issues in the fit out industry as well. So both drawing them out and then making sure that we're actually shining a light on them and helping projects address them. I think my screen's going crazy. Okay, so Green Star Fitouts. It is a tool for new fit-outs or major refurbishments of fit-outs. And the aim of this tool is advancing circular practices and fit-outs that are responsibly made, they're healthy and positive spaces for people. So we've got a broad focus here, like we do in all our Green Star tools, where we've got a large kind of scope, array of issues that we're dealing with in our built environment, and therefore opportunities that are presented to projects to do better, basically. So it's all very exciting. We are building on the success of Green Star Interiors and the predecessors of that as well. So we've got over or almost 500 certified fit out projects from our Green Star Interiors tool, which a few of you may be familiar with, and some of our older tools as well. And we've got these across a range of sectors as well. So we've had lots of office fit outs, obviously, like many of you would know, retail fit outs too, healthcare, community building fit outs. So there has been quite a broad range. And a big part of what we've been doing and looking at in creating this new fit outs tool is how do we expand that range as well? And how do we, we've had a relatively large focus in the office sector. How do we continue that, but also broaden out into other areas where we know there are real challenges, particularly like retail? So that's been a big part of our focus, and what we've looked at in creating this tool is how do we make sure that it's applicable for a range of different project scales, scopes, and typologies. So you can see that throughout the guidelines themselves, and just in kind of what we're targeting and the options that we're giving everyone in terms of meeting the outcomes. I'm just going to show you a few familiar projects. So we've had some big names certify with us too. So Country Road Group certify lots of fit outs with us and are continuing with the fit outs tool. We've had GPT suites as well, which are great projects. Alta UNSW are currently doing a bunch of new fit outs as well. So this is really exciting. It just shows, I guess, that range of different typologies that are already using the tools and what we'll see rolling over and what will continue the push for with this new tool too. And I'm going to talk briefly to some of the kind of key issues that we're looking at in fit outs. And we came to this through quite a lot of research and scoping and some separate research pieces as well that we ran through GVCA and with other members too. And one of the big ones for fit outs that I wanted to talk about was the fit out the waste. So we know that these projects are so regular. There is a huge amount of fit out churn because, you know, people move offices, move spaces, leases end, or it's just time for a refurb, teams grow, etc. So there are obviously lots of reasons for this, but one of the outcomes of this is that there's a huge amount of wasted material coming out every time we're creating a new fit out. It's one of the things that we're really looking at trying to change. And again, I'll talk about the kind of different levers that we've presented in the tool to help enable this. But one of the things I wanted to highlight was we did a great piece with Choreo last year, looking at a lot of our data from both buildings and fit outs, and got a bit of an idea of actually where we were sitting with how much wasted material is coming out of both building projects and fit out projects. And I think the important thing that it highlighted was that the wasted material also amounts to wasted money on each of these projects too. So I think that's really worth noting. When we pulled out the research, we found that there's on average over 300 tons of waste per fit out, with around just over $100 of wasted material per square meter. So that's material that you're paying for and is going straight to waste. That's something that we wanted to shine a light on and something that we wanted to try to address through this tool too. You know, within the limits of what we can, we're looking at a point in time, but what can you do in your project to reduce the waste of material? And that includes what's going to, you know, recycling and landfill as well. How do we actually make sure we're retaining the value of those materials and ideally either reusing them ourselves or redistributing them, repurposing them, just retaining that value so it's not being chewed up, spat out as something new, you know, if we need to, but that's not the first point we go to. So this is a really important for us that we're looking at throughout this tool. The other thing that we were looking at too is we've actually seen a lot of leases shortening as well. So that means that this problem of churn has also increased, I guess, since COVID. So we saw lots more short leases coming out, particularly in the retail space as well. Again, this just means there is more opportunity for that churn. So how do we make sure that short leases don't equal a ton of waste every time? Again, just means there's opportunity for issues to arise here. How do we actually deal with them? How do we do a bit better? So these are some of the things we wanted to look at and that we're grappling with. And I'll talk through how we're addressing this in the tool now. So Green Star Fitouts, we've introduced the first circular category. We haven't done this before in any of our other tools. And the reason this is the perfect place to try this and to launch this new category is because of this kind of quick turnover of fit outs, which means we can actually see the impact that we have through, you know, circularity enablers, particularly in that design and construction phase. So how do we actually set up our fit out? So we're looking carefully at the materials going into them. We can look at how we can extend the life of those materials, but also then how we set up so that we can pull those materials out without damaging them and redistribute them at the end of the fit out, and making that easier to do rather than the default, which is just grabbing a skip and loading everything in and damaging a lot of that value in the process. So, you know, doing what we can to enable that circularity piece, knowing that, you know, it's a point in time, you can't do the whole thing all at once at one moment in time. But again, this is the point where we can enable it. So new category that we'll talk a little bit more about. We've also got our responsible category. Again, if you're familiar with other Green Star tools, you'd be familiar with this one. Lots of familiar credits in there. So we still have our responsible products credits in there. In this case, we're looking at that at the fit out level. So we're looking at, you know, both our finishes, but also our furniture and our equipment and fixtures as well. And that uses our responsible products framework, which I can talk to a little bit more as well. So help you make better decisions around your purchasing and understanding, you know, what's great about the products that you can choose and what's been recognized by third-party certifications that we recognize through our Green Star tools. So a little bit about those upfront ones. Our healthy category too. So we're looking at things like clean air, light quality, acoustic comfort, thermal comfort in this, plus a bunch of other great things in here. And then our positive category is where we're driving our climate positive pathway to. So we are incentivizing fit outs that are all electric, that are powered by renewables, that are energy and water efficient, and that are reducing upfront carbon, compensating where you can. And there are a handful again of these minimum expectations, which I'll talk a little bit more about through this as well. And then lastly, as the kind of core categories, is our people category as well. So this is looking at things like both practices on site during construction and how do we look after the workers on site, but also how do we look at, the procurement piece, the social procurement piece and impact piece as well. How do we make sure that we are designing spaces that accommodate the diverse needs of the users of spaces as well? So thinking about people different to us and what their needs may be in a space. So again, lots of great areas for opportunity here to be rewarded for doing better than the status quo and looking after people, looking after our environment too. And as always, we have our leadership category, and that's the chance to pick up anything else, other things, great initiatives that you're doing in projects that you'd like to be recognized for as well. So we release leadership challenges, but there's also the opportunity to claim points for market transformation. So any other great things that you think you're doing that are worth getting rewarded for, worth putting through in leadership. So I'll give a little bit more of a run through kind of the structure of the tool. And if you've got any questions throughout, again, just pop them in the chat or leave them out to the end. Okay. Just run down a bit of the structure of this tool and how it works, because there are some differences between this and Green Star buildings and performance, etc. So you will see the rating scale for Green Star Fitouts is very like buildings, where we've got 4, 5, and 6-star ratings available. For Green Star Fitouts, our 4-star rating is just about meeting minimum expectations, no extra points. That is a difference between Green Star buildings and Green Star Fitouts in that kind of structure of the 4, 5, 6. This was very intentional. What we're trying to do here with this 4-star is say, you've just got a set of credits, they have minimum expectations, so things that every fit out project needs to do. Get really good at them and work on that as your base for a 4-star rating, and then you can work up from there. And a part of this is about trying to make it slightly more approachable as well for new projects coming in, smaller projects coming in, saying they've got a really clear pathway to target a Green Star Fitouts rating already laid out for them, and then it's just a matter of building on that. So I'll talk a little bit more about those minimum expectations too, but just worth pointing out that kind of slight difference in the structure of the 4, 5, 6 between this and buildings. Our 5-star rating, so we introduced the climate positive pathway as well, so I can talk a little bit more about what that looks like, as well as additional points, and then likewise for our 6-star rating. So again, that same sort of 4, 5, 6, but just a slight difference in that 4-star just being about minimum expectations only. And on the minimum expectations, this is just a summary of the sort of things that we're looking at that minimum outcome level for fit out projects. So again, I'll talk more about the categories that they sit within shortly. One of the things that we're looking at from a circularity stance here, so at a minimum for your projects, identifying opportunities to include reuse elements in the fit out. So whether that's retaining existing elements that are on site that have been used and you're reusing them in your next fit out, or whether that's procuring from secondhand suppliers as an example. So just identifying what those opportunities are. Can you carry them through to your project? If you can, and you can hit our thresholds that we've laid out in the subsequent performance levels there, then you can get rewarded extra points for that as well. So again, just take a look at the beginning of your project. What are the opportunities to reuse stuff? It's pretty simple in theory. As you continue through, there are a bunch more here. I won't go through all of them in great detail, but I guess a couple others that I'll point to. Fully electric, so looking at fit outs that are fully electric, you're not installing gas as part of your fit out, you're not connecting to base building gas as well as part of your fit out, and then you can get rewarded beyond that for further engagement with the building owner, the landlord, around what the building that you're in looks like as well, and what the electrification plan is there. Energy and water efficient, we've tried to create some simple pathways for this as well. So looking at your energy and water rating labels. So that provides a clear path. And again, just some standard kind of ratings that you need to meet for energy and water efficiency that you can take and run with for your project. So Again, trying to make it, simple where you can, but noting that there's so much variability in projects. So there'll be different pain points with different people, but there is a very clear path with all these minimum expectations. The last one that I will point to here as well is, let's look at our improved air quality and low toxic materials. So again, areas that you might be familiar with if you're across other Green Star tools. So we're looking at what does your air quality look like? How are you setting up your HVAC systems or your ventilation as well for it? And then also captured in that little bubble there, we've got the low toxin materials too. So that's another credit, but looking at, are you procuring products, materials that are low in VOCs, low in formaldehyde? So some thresholds around that as well. But again, a bit of an emphasis on the healthy category credits here that we've got. Where we've got minimum expectations here, a lot of these are based on what we've seen lots of interiors projects target. So where we can see projects are doing really well, or where we're saying, actually, this is a really important one for us here that we want to push for better on all projects as well. So like that circularity piece as an example, just starting with reusing more products in your fit out. Okay. I am going to give you a very quick run through each of the categories and sort of the credits that we're looking at here, and then open up for questions, of course, and we can talk a little bit more about it all together. So quick run through our circular category, that maximizing reuse piece. So again, just looking at opportunities to reuse materials that have already gone through a first use in the fit out. So whether that's on site, whether that's procuring from off site. If you go into a space, as an example, and you've got stuff that's been left over from a previous tenant, or it's warm shell that's already been used by a previous tenant, that can be claimed as reuse because you're using it again in that space. If you're procuring goods from externally, from reuse suppliers, as an example, again, that's another opportunity to claim reused. So just looking at these opportunities to keep materials circulating again and again, and incentivize that through your projects. A couple more enabling sort of credits in here as well. So enabling multiple uses is about designing for flexibility. Can you move things around, use spaces for different purposes? And can you provide some guidance as to how that works and what that might look like? Another one that I'll point out as well is the enabling future reuse is about setting up for future success as well. So at the end of your fit out's life, can you have a digital asset register that's set up that tells you everything that's in your fit out and information about it, so it makes it easier when you don't need it any longer to enable it to be recirculated through the economy so that you can either pass it over to someone else, relocate it on a different site of yours, or send it to a secondhand supplier as well. So how do we just enable that these products are being kept in circulation again and again as best as possible, rather than making it easier to just send them to landfill? So we've got the information upfront on hand. This is really important. I think this is where, the technology evolution over the years as well is coming into play. It's easier to pull together this information. We can have it on file and share this across throughout the life of the fit out. And this is something that you can use at the end. Ideally, you can use it to update, look at your maintenance, and just push through again to make it easier to enable that future reuse of all those parts in your fit out. So a couple of ones that I'll talk to there, and if you have questions about the other ones too, we can talk to that in a bit more detail later. I'll go into our responsible credit category. So again, lots of familiar credits here if you're across our other rating tools. 2 credits here with minimum expectations. So the first one that I'll talk to is that responsible material management. So this is essentially looking at what some of us would call construction and demolition waste. We are really trying to get away from the kind of waste language, noting that it is, waste when we decide it is waste. These materials can still have value that we can extend over time. The important one that we're looking at here is just looking at reporting the volume of material leaving your site in each different phase of your project. So we split out to identify kind of 3 key different phases where we want to understand how much stuff is leaving your site during these phases. Not even necessarily where it's going at this point, but having an idea of how much is leaving site at each phase. So if you have got a defect strip out as part of that, oh, sorry, someone's taken over screen sharing. Have you lost that or have you still got my screen?
No, we lost your screen right now.
Oh, okay. That's all right.
Try
Bear
again.
with me for a second. Okay.
There we go again.
Okay, we're back. Okay, so responsible material management. We're looking at, so what is coming out of your fit out project if you've got, if, for example, if you're doing a refurbishment, if you've got any sort of strip out, or if you're doing any sort of demo at the beginning as part of that, can we just understand what's leaving the site during that point? You're not getting, you're not necessarily getting rewarded for less or more at that point. We just want to understand what's happening and get an idea of what's leaving the site. Then we look at what's happening in when you're doing kind of a strip out of all the hard items as well. So if that strip out is part of your project, that comes into the scope. So just understanding if you are doing that, what's leaving site, how much is leaving site, and then looking at what's happening during your whole construction phase as well. So how much material is leaving site, and then helping us understand, okay, who are you using? Where are these materials going? Knowing that it's sometimes hard to get the kind of granularity around exactly what's going where, but can we understand, who you're using, who you're working with? And then as we continue along in this credit as well, can we look at some on-site separation of your materials as well that are leaving your site? So it might mean just separating your metal and your timbers and your plasterboard on site. We're looking for about 2 streams, I think is the minimum there. So that's where you start getting rewarded points. And again, this is about looking at, okay, can we reduce this also? But can we also look at opportunities to enable better recycling where materials are destined for it? So rather than putting it all in a mixed bin and hoping that it's not contaminated, can we actually give that better odds of actually retaining that value and more recycling value from what's heading there essentially? We've got a responsible handover credit as well. So this credit is looking at your commissioning and handover, relatively light on depending on your scale, this varies here. So again, making this work for both smaller projects where there's less commissioning works in some cases, and then making it pertain to bigger projects as well. So just scaling those requirements as relevant depending on your scope and your scale. So the other ones here that I'll talk to that aren't minimum expectations, but again, worth a bit of attention are so you can see a handful here: responsible finishes and joinery, responsible partitions, furniture, and then equipment and fixtures. So broken these up into a handful of different credits here. And this is where we start looking at products that have got a third-party certification that is recognized under our responsible products framework at GBCA. I can direct you to links with a bit more information around these here as well. But essentially what we do is we set out a responsible products value that products need to meet thresholds in these credits. And then we have a score checker tool and we look at these certifications that products have. We recognize them with that value as well. So then you can look at, okay, I've got this product here, this chair. It's got, as an example, a GEC certification that equals whatever RPV here that meets the threshold for this credit. So as an example, that's how you'd step through with a product. Again, I won't go into the nitty-gritty and the detail of that here, but just worth keeping an eye on because it's a significant amount of points here as well, and a really good way of understanding how to find better products too. And then going through, I'll list through these next couple of ones too. So the healthy category, like I mentioned earlier, we've got a handful of minimum expectations in here, mainly based on ones that we've seen heaps of interiors projects targeting. So they're things that lots of projects are familiar with, but that are important to continue to drive. So our clean air, again, looking at these credits and understanding what is within the control of a fit out versus what's within the control of a base building. So we've done a lot of work here to make sure that these credits work to be more relevant to your fit out scope. Clean air, light quality are really good examples of that too. So when you go into the detail of that, you'll see it's really about what you can do within the control of your fit out scope, and where the base building comes into play, that can often be rewarded in those higher performance levels where you can't get rewarded for light quality for great daylight. If your fit out doesn't have access to daylight, you won't be, you can still get your minimum expectation with that, but you can get rewarded above and beyond if you are looking at that, you're in a great base building that has great daylight, that gets rewarded in there as well. Like for a couple of those other credits in there too. So again, I won't go into too much detail here, but worth knowing there's a bunch of minimum expectations in there, but things lots of projects are already very familiar with. And then last two categories here, I promise I'll run through these ones and then open to questions. But our positive category, this is where a lot of our climate positive pathway credits sit. So our climate positive pathway is basically a mechanism that we have in our rating tools. It ratchets up requirements over time. So talking to some of what these requirements are, so our fully electric requirements of this credit here, that requires, again, fully electric fit outs. So whatever you're installing, whatever you're connecting to, your fit out is running on electricity. You're not connecting to gas. The powered by renewables piece then also comes in. That's not a minimum expectation, but over time for that 4, 5, 6-star rating as it progresses over the years. So I think our years in our climate positive pathway are this year and then 2028, 2030. That ratchets up over time. So your 5, your 6-star, eventually your 4-star will be needing to do that as the years progress. And then our energy, water efficient, they are just minimum expectations. So requirements here, just minimum expectations. Again, we've got pretty prescriptive approaches in there as well, very intentionally. So there's a very clear pathway there. You can use energy rating labels where you can. Excellent, that's great. You can do modeling if you've got more complex projects as well. Water efficient, very much the same thing. And then big one here, our upfront carbon reduction. So that's introduces a minimum expectation like we have in the rest of our rating tools as well. It's just a 10% for the minimum expectation. And we have been working on a calculator for this as well to help project teams out. And it's an upfront carbon and circularity calculator. So it actually plugs into a few different credits to help you out there. So it helps you with calculating that upfront carbon and the circularity all in the one place. So you're just entering your kind of bill of quantities essentially and data against it all in the one place. And then you can calculate that upfront carbon there and your circularity measurement there as well. You can also calculate your reuse rates in there, so that plugs into your maximizing reuse credit. So some powerful tools coming, still in development, coming out very soon, but one that we think will be really helpful to the industry as well, particularly, again, for smaller projects and projects who aren't looking at LCAs on a regular basis and the like. So just another one to take note of. And then again, last kind of core category here that we've got, so our people category. So we look at construction site culture, so what's actually happening on your site, how can we set up programs to help the workers on your site as well, enable better equity, enable just better fairness and treatment of one another. So it's really looking at what the culture is like on your site. We also look at here, so First Nations equity. And then because this tool is also being used in New Zealand as well, we've got a Tohu Māori order credit. Definitely butchered the pronunciation of that, but that's for use and application in New Zealand-based projects as well. So two really important ones that we can look at here, and a lot of that is about, again, engaging with First Nations folks and looking at how they can help to influence the design and support them through procurement and the like as well. The procurement and workforce inclusion also does a bit of that. So looking at that procurement piece, so social procurement and workforce inclusion. So how can you look at what's actually happening on your sites in terms of who's working there? Can you enable opportunities for disadvantaged folks to bring in opportunities for apprenticeships as an example? Can you procure from essentially social enterprises or the like? There's a list of a couple of different areas there you can look at. And then in our design for equity credits, that last one in there, we're looking at, can you set up spaces that are, designed for equity? So you are looking at equal opportunities for people to navigate your spaces, work in your spaces. And again, the first point there that we're looking at is doing like a bit of an assessment there and then looking at that engagement piece as well. So actually doing some co-design. So there's a minimum expectation in that, but then there's also the opportunity to go beyond and be rewarded points for that as well. So lots of important little pieces to look at in this tool. And again, opportunities to kind of focus on areas that are important to you as well, to your project too, beyond those minimum expectations. Last one here, which I won't talk to much more, but again, that leadership category as well sets up. So if there's something here that you think is missing or that you think you're going above and beyond that, there's the opportunity to be rewarded in our leadership category as well. And so with that, I will open to questions. I will finish up actually on some key dates and kind of what's happening in the pipeline too. So importantly, let's see, projects can register now. So the submission guidelines are out, a bunch of resources already out, and we're finishing up the last couples that are coming out too. So like that calculator, like a couple more templates that are coming. But there's plenty to do now. You can familiarize yourself with the requirements, what's out there, get to see if it might work for your projects. So definitely worth having a look at. And then timing wise, so we had our formal launch in March at Transform. Guidelines came out then. Resources have continued to come out. And then we're looking at submissions opening a little later this year. So in August, coming up soon. And our Green Star Interiors registrations are closing in September. So quite a short transition window for this tool. And that's because, again, projects, fit out projects move so quickly. So looking at that shorter transition window for that purpose. And with that, I'll close up and open to questions if you'd like. And I'll pick out a few in the chat. Okay. Does anyone have questions in the room? Any verbal questions? No?
Put one in the chat.
Yes, Anne, got you here. Okay, great. Can you share anticipated changes in the tool in the next 5 years? Will more items become required and any new areas expected? Good question. There are definitely some areas that we've kind of highlighted as opportunities for us to create leadership challenges in and to continue exploring. One of which, as an example, is in our low toxin materials, can we actually look more carefully at furniture, which is currently a very difficult one for a lot of projects. A lot of furniture doesn't have certification to demonstrate that they've got low VOC levels. So can we actually start retching up requirements for that? So that's an area that we're going to start pushing on. Circularity piece, we will also continue pushing on, Anne. So we originally went out in consultation proposing that, like, you know, could we actually look at a circularity pathway akin to the climate positive pathway, whereby we'd have requirements that retch up over time? And the consensus was like, yes, great, but also we barely understand what this means and what we need to do right now. So is it going to make it too complicated? Where do we even start? So we've gone out without one at this point in time, with the view that depending on how we go, let's take a look at that and see if that's something that we implement in the next version as well. So we can start getting some greater momentum in that area too. So that's just a couple to speak to. There are others too that I'm not thinking of off the top of my head. If there's anything that you'd have in mind, be interested to hear that.
So there wasn't like a particular topic area that you looked at and shelved. I guess the one that I'm wondering about is nature. And you've got connection to nature, but I'm wondering about embodied nature impacts in material selection. We have no way of really easily assessing that at the moment, so it wouldn't be a now thing, but I'm wondering whether there was any conversation about in time, would that be, would the whole nature area be its own bucket rather than a subset of health? I was curious about that.
Yeah, it definitely also was part of the conversation, and it was just we're not ready right now, but definitely something we're looking at along with all the other nature work we're doing. So definitely. But like you said, it's like we don't have a really good way to quantify that right now. So it's hard right now, but definitely something we'll look to push for in this tool. Yeah.
Joe Carton, hello.
Sure. Hi.
Gabby, do you want to stop your screen sharing, and then we can?
Yes, of course. You can actually see.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hi.
I love the question, Anne, but I just thought I'd offer the observation that where we lack data around nature impacts, right? Circularity is a really good proxy, because the more we can extend the life of resources, the less impact we have on embodied carbon in nature.
Yeah, totally. And that was very much our focus. It's like, this is the area where you can have some impact. There is that long connection as well. It's not as like nature upfront as a category in this tool at this point, but totally, Joe. That's a good point. Yeah, thanks. Anyone else? Any other questions? Anything you're surprised by? Want more of? Less of? No.
Just thanks for continuing to evolve the tool.
Yeah, it's exciting. We've got lots of good. One thing I didn't talk about is we've had really good early access program as well that we've been working with. So we've already had one certified project that came out with our launch as well. So we pushed really hard with that. But we've got a great group of partners that we've been working with too, who helped us in the development, but are also obviously working now on their certifications as well. So that's all been really exciting and just good to see. I feel like it's put us in really good stead, understanding how to make this more practical and just give us a chance to kind of test it out with projects too. So yeah, excellent. Sure.
Yeah, I did have a question about the products, the responsible products framework and responsible products, and the ability for project teams to quickly see whether a product meets the RPV value, and also whether that database, something we've been talking to GBCA about it, whether that database can be like API linked so that businesses can effectively ingest those different products. And then when we're doing our sample submission process, we can see automatically, somebody suggests a product. Oh, we see how many Green Star points, RPV it gets.
We are doing some work on that. So
Cool.
Stay tuned.
Thanks.
But it's definitely something that we've been looking at. One of the other things, again, not quite there yet, but it's getting better, I think, is that we've taken the online calculator back offline because we know it's easier for people to navigate and use with the RPVs, and again, just looking at your scores as well. But that kind of directory piece is something that we've been looking at. So yeah, again, stay tuned.
Yeah, and I've seen 2 more screens come on. Does that mean there are questions? Putting you on the spot, Hudson or CJ.
No question. I just was on domestic duties and you didn't need to see me folding football socks and school uniforms while I was listening in. But look, thank you. But while I was doing that, I wondered, is there an embodied carbon component to this? Did I miss that, or is it?
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, we have. Yeah, again, another one where I mentioned we've got a calculator coming in due course, which is a notoriously hard thing to do for fit out projects. So with lots of different scope of stuff you can have in a fit out. So
excellent. And any data that goes into that, our working group that looked at measurement spent a lot of time navigating the standards and the data sets and so on. And I appreciate just how difficult that is. But if it can be as aligned to the industry as closely as possible, I think all the practitioners will be like, whew, thank you. So
totally.
that's important.
Very conscious of that. Yeah.
Great.
No, great point. CJ.
Hey, yeah, great presentation. Love to see circularity coming in as a category in here. That's really great. I was wondering if you have been a part of any discussions within GBCA. It sounds like this is first getting debuted here in the interior space, and I was wondering if that circularity section is being trialed here in fit outs with the intention of expanding to the other rating schemes, or how that evolution is intended to go about.
Yes, very much so. Looking at this as our kind of trial ground for a new category, looking at this. And then, yes, seeing what we can do as we push into the next versions of the tools as well. So it's a kind of learning, see how we go as well, and whether, how that can evolve in the buildings tool down the line, the communities tool down the line, like where that all fits in. So yeah, very much the long-term game plan.
Yeah, brilliant. Excited to see where that goes.
Yeah, exactly. Exciting times. Okay. Any other questions?
I might ask something. I'm not sure whether I missed it, but we when we were at Build in that panel conversation, we were lucky to have a MECLA member on board of the panel as well, which was Crafted Hardwoods, and they were talking about how what you mentioned, you buy the materials, and if you can reuse them by sort of refurbish, like by scaling down the plates of a desk and reusing the material, whatever. Does the tool actually have the ability to go through multiple of those fit out cycles for one office as well? Like, do they connect to one another, and that you get benefits for this if you're moving it through? Is that planned for the future?
It can, kind of depending on how it's working.
Yeah.
Yes, in theory it can. It's Yeah, it's an interesting one that will see its application to things like spec suites and stuff as well. So we are looking at that now, which I think will be that similar sort of thing where you'll be looking at tenants coming in and out of fit outs that, might change and evolve a bit. But yeah, I think it'll work quite well for that, Kathy. So
yeah, thank you. Yeah, well, I'm not very in the know about Green Star, not being a developer or builder. The other question I had was this framework, do you use, I'm assuming you use that all the way through the design, the development process, is that correct? So it goes through all the stages. So okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think part of this too, and particularly in that circular category, is really emphasizing that like pre-design and design piece. That's where so much of the power is. So we emphasize that in the tools too, and setting up for success.
Yeah, fantastic. All right. Any more questions? No. All right. Well, thank you so much, Gabrielle, for joining us here today and giving us this presentation. It's so much to learn. It's such an interesting topic. So glad something's happening in this space, and we're really keen to see where this is moving towards. Now it continues to evolve. We have recorded this, and if you're happy to share the recording and share your slide deck, we will put that up on our website so others that weren't part of this conversation can look into it. I have received a few questions whether there was a recording. A couple of other notes. MECLA is, the Secretariat is taking a short break, or at least the kick part of it is taking a short break from tomorrow and until the end of next week. So we'll be back on the 13th of July, and that week is packed already. You have all received an invite to the New South Wales Net Zero Commission feedback session on the decarbonisation pathway scenarios today. If that's not in your inbox, and you then have a look or reach out to us. And then there will be another invite coming out for the WWF and MECLA report and homes and habitats later this month. Oh, Monica is here. Do you want to talk to that for a second?
Well, I just want to sort of foreshadow. So for those of you who aren't aware, the New South Wales Net Zero Commission put out this decarbonisation paper a couple of weeks ago, and I dialed into their information session on Monday. So there are two elements to what they're looking for to help guide their recommendations to government. One is what the technology changes are and what the behaviour changes are. And, we are all about systems change. How do you intervene across the supply chain through behaviour change mechanisms to achieve, some decarbonisation? I thought of all the opportunities for us to be able to have some influence, if we were to come together and do some brainstorming, they've got some really good questions in there. It would be really great to have us come together and help to craft a MECLA submission to put into the commission. So that's Wednesday fortnight from 12 to 1, and the invitations went out to you all today. And Hudson and I will help facilitate that. So this is a change management process, and it'd be great to have your input into that if you're keen to participate. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, thanks for giving us this hour of your day and joining us to listen and learn from Gabrielle. And thanks to Nick, who also joined from GBCA. And we'll see you again in next month.